So I'm getting a lot of questions lately about how some of the decisions being made in Congress may affect care for the unhoused community in Fredericksburg. All I can really tell you for sure is that there's a lot of uncertainty about how progress made in the last 2 decades could be erased. For instance, if the recently approved cuts to Medicaid cause Virginia to roll back the eligibility expansion that happened in 2018, unhoused neighbors are one of many subpopulations that could lose benefits. What people don't always realize is that before Medicaid was expanded in Virginia, less than 30% of unhoused neighbors had insurance. The Moss-Free Clinic and the emergency room were the only place they could go for care. The eligibility process was cumbersome and the waits were long. People couldn't afford the prescriptions given to them, and the hospital racked up a huge amount of unpaid bills. After Medicaid expansion, more than 90% of our unhoused neighbors now have insurance. It's easily been a game changer as far as how people can access primary care, mental health treatment, substance abuse services, and other kinds of care. It makes places like the respite house, where I'm standing on the front porch right now, that much easier to help folks when they come out of the hospital and need to get the care that they need as they're trying to get stable again. So if that goes away, if Medicaid goes away for our unhoused neighbors, the door's shut on healthcare opportunities for some very vulnerable people. Remember, 78% of people on the street have a disability. Living on the street takes years off of people's lives. And I'd be remiss not to mention that this is now a time in our community when we no longer have a free clinic. So it does seem that there may be a way for people to keep Medicaid if they can meet work requirements. So let's talk about how that could preemptively, hopefully unintentionally, end eligibility for many unhoused people, even if states do not roll back expansion. Usually, when work requirements are imposed on public benefits, it exempts people with disabilities, but that typically means an official approval for Social Security. It isn't just showing proof that you have a disability. Social Security is a long, arduous process that many on the street eventually qualify for, but it takes time. In addition, the living conditions for people on the street make it impossibly difficult to meet work requirements and submit the documentation that keeps their benefits active. So we're hoping perhaps there will be exemptions for people experiencing homelessness as we begin to figure out what happens to Medicaid under this new budget bill. But the impacts are still steep for marginalized groups. It's worth noting that research also shows that communities often spend millions of dollars more on enforcement than they would have if they provided benefits without work requirements. To further complicate matters, there is talk that the appropriation stage of the budget process is going to attack Housing First funding. Briefly, Housing First has been the identified best practice since 2007. It means that agencies caring for the unhoused community aim to put people in housing first, and then it's easier to work on all the other challenges that cause people to struggle to maintain housing. About $600,000 in Housing First funding comes to MICA from the federal government. If that goes away, it's going to become very difficult to keep existing tenants in apartments, and the capacity to house new tenants plummets.
Okay.
I'll have more to say on that later, but my point is that there is a lot of reasons to be nervous about how decisions being made at the federal level could make it harder to care for the unhoused community. If, for instance, Medicaid eligibility narrows and housing funding becomes contingent on how well people are engaged in treatment, the federal government will be asking communities to make housing contingent upon participation at a level that people in need don't have the resources to access. I wish I had more hopeful words from the street today, But today, that hope is in how you listen, understand, and advocate. Educate your neighbors. Educate your fellow voters. And it isn't too late to reach out to your congressperson and even your state representative to make sure they know the impacts of the decisions that they make. It's your turn to take words to the street. Ready?